got to be kidding, Robin said. Much scowled. His heart was still pounding from the run back to the forest, and he wished that just once Robin would take him at his word. "Do I look like a man who's joking?" he asked. Robin shrugged. "Usually, yes." "All right, but this time I'm deadly serious." "Witch-finders," Little John said. He turned suddenly, suspicious eyes on Robin. "You haven't been consorting with demons lately, have you? I thought I caught a glint of red in your eye by the fire last night." Robin sighed. "There's no such thing as witches." "If anyone's on first-name terms with the devil," said Tuck, "it's the sheriff." "Witches might not exist," Mudge said, "but these witch-finders do. There's hundreds of them, well, dozens, and they're all after you." "But we're not witches, so they won't be able to find us," John said with that infuriating reason. "But they're not looking for witches," Alan said. "They're looking for us, right? Who knows what kind of powers they've got?" "For heaven's sake," Robin said, "witches don't exist, and witch-finders don't have any mysterious powers." "So, you're saying we're safe?" Much asked dubiously. "No, I'm saying the sheriff must have a different plan. Something we haven't realised yet." Guy decided the only safe option was to keep his mouth shut. He turned his gaze to the ground so he wouldn't have to look at the gangly witch-finder walking at his right hand with those terrifyingly knowing eyes, and so he wouldn't have to see Marion, somehow inexplicably walking at his left hand. "I won't go away if you ignore me," she said. "We've got unfinished business, you and I." "Just shut up," he gritted, unable to stop himself glancing up at her. "I beg your pardon?" Witchfinder Hugh said. "Nothing," Guy growled. "Just nothing." He couldn't let this man find out he was talking to ghosts. That was the kind of thing witches did, and witches got burned at the stake. "So, there are rumours of fell doings in this village, are there? Evil forces, dark sightings, stuff like that?" asked Witchfinder Derek, the fair-haired, good-looking one with an expression that managed to be simultaneously calculating and slightly stupid. He didn't frighten Guy at all. He just irritated him. But the sheriff had picked these two in particular, and his instructions had been very clear. Even in his half-waking haze, Guy knew he'd be wise to obey them. "There's talk of a witch, yes." "No wonder, when these villagers are said to be so close to the hooded terror himself." Guy shot him another sharp look. How could Hugh know that? He'd only been in Nottingham a day. He darted another more cautious look to his left, where Marion still walked beside him. There was a half-smile on her face, and he thought she was probably enjoying this. That would be just like her, taking pleasure in his discomfort. "Are you all right?" Derek asked. "You're looking a little peaky, if you don't mind me saying." "Yes, I do mind," said Guy coldly. They crested a ridge, and finally Loxley lay spread out before them, ramshackle but lively. Children played by the stream, brown streaks of mud around their bright white smiles. Their parents watched fondly from a distance. Marion had loved this village. She'd been prepared to die to defend its people. "They were worth it," she said. "Look at them, Guy. They deserve better than what you're doing. And you know it." "Right," Guy snarled, deliberately looking at the witchfinders instead of her. "Let's get on with it." When Kate saw Gisborne enter the village beside two of the sheriff's witchfinders, she felt a knot of fear in her stomach. Fear and hatred for the man who had killed her brother, Matthew. His dark eyes swept over her as he scanned the villagers. They seemed to catch and pause a moment before moving on, and she shivered. Gisborne shouted for attention, but when the villagers had gathered, it was one of the witchfinders who stepped forward, the tall, gangly one with the sharp nose and pale eyes. "There's no need for fear any more,"
I know that times have been hard here, especially for you, Mistress Perry. Both parents passing away in the space of a month. A terrible loss.
There was a gasp from the villagers. "How do you know that?" Joan Perry asked, voice shaky with unshed tears. The witchfinder lifted her hand and cradled it in his.
The Lord feels your pain, mistress. He whispers it to me. He tells me all your secrets, the hidden darkness in every soul.
The crowd murmured in wonder as the other witchfinder shot him a sour look. "Exactly," Gisborne said brusquely, but Kate thought he sounded shaken. "And we all know what you lot feel about Robin Hood. You'd do anything to help him. Well, now it's time to pay." The other witchfinder stepped forward, sweeping his blonde hair from his eyes. "Now, I'm sensing an old lady. She passed to the other side. I'm getting an M, or is it a P, or..." He looked around the villagers frantically. "It could be a W." "Auntie Wendy died 10 years ago," Farmer George said dubiously. "Yes, Wendy, that's it. Old lady, was she? Grey hair, not so steady on her feet anymore." "That's right," George said, sounding slightly more impressed. The witchfinder shot a quick, triumphant look at his gangly counterpart. "What's that, Wendy? You want your nephew to know that you're very content on the other side. She says there's no need to fret, George. She's as happy as Larry." "Blimey! Death certainly changed that miserable old bat," somebody shouted from the crowd. The witchfinder scowled, but Gisborne pushed him aside before he could speak. "This is pointless. Listen, you scum. There's a witch here. You know it. I know it. And if one of you doesn't point them out, all of you will suffer." Nobody was foolish enough to think Gisborne was bluffing, but they wouldn't sacrifice an innocent to save themselves. That, Kate thought, was why they were better people than their master, for all that they were commoners, and he was a gentleman. Then, just as Gisborne had opened his mouth to speak again, a small voice piped up. "I know the witch, sir," the little girl said. "I've seen her in the woods, dancing with the devil." Something about the way Gisborne smiled at the child made the knot of fear tighten in Kate's stomach. Gisborne knelt on the ground, bringing his eyes to the child's level. "And did you recognize her?" he asked. "Do you know who the witch is?" There was a moment's hesitation. Then the little girl nodded. "Yes," she said. "It's her." Her finger pointed straight at Kate. The two witchfinders dragged Kate into the centre of the village. Some boy tried to stop them. By the look of him, he was probably another brother. Gisborne flinched at the sudden memory of plunging his sword into a young man. A girl's scream as he fell to the ground, and then it was gone. Guy strode forward, felling the boy with a negligent blow. Marion's spirit walked beside him. She was silent, but he could read the contempt in her face. The witchfinders pushed Kate to her knees in the mud. It splashed across all four of them, stinking of pigs and worse. Only Marion remained untouched, her perfect pale face unmarked. Guy found himself staring at it, and forced his eyes away with an effort of will. "Get on with it!" he shouted at the witchfinders. "Is she a witch or not?" Derek sniffed, offended. It's not as simple as that. There are rituals, prayers, procedures." He trailed off at Guy's glare. "Although there are also some simple tests. Quick tests. Quick and simple tests." Hugh, always faster on the uptake, had already pulled something small and shiny from the purse he carried around his neck. He turned to the crowd, holding it out, and Guy saw that it was a long needle.
"Witches think they are cunning,"
Hugh said.
"but they are stupid. They make a bargain, a deal with the devil, their souls in return for power."
"Look at me," Kate said. "What kind of power have I got?" "Ah," said Derek, "that's the cunning bit. Don't want to be too obvious about it, do you?" Guy shot him a foul look, and he subsided.
"Power over your bodies, over pain and death," said Hugh. "That's what you bought in return for your soul, and that's how you shall be known."
He spun so fast, Guy barely followed the movement. One moment the needle was glittering in sight of the crowd, the next it was buried inches deep in Kate's arm. She stared in shock, but without any sign of pain. Seeing her reaction, the villagers let out a sound that was halfway between a gasp and a groan.
"The mark of a witch,"
Hugh said.
"All the proof we need."
"I was just about to do that," Derek muttered. "Do you confess your sin?" Guy asked Kate. "What do you think?" she said, defiance hiding her fear. "It doesn't matter," he told her. "You'll die either way."
"So, that's it," Marion whispered in his ear. "More blood at the sheriff's orders, and on your hands. I hope you're happy."
Guy bit his lip to stop himself from replying. He wanted to tell her that of course he wasn't happy. How could he ever be happy again, now she was dead?